Please enjoy the story Beauty is Pain 1. Some time ago in an unidentified country where women wore powder on their freckled noses, and the men shined their finest top hats, laid a great kingdom. The kingdom was so painfully divine with its copper wall lining that would shine like the Queen's mother's finest diamonds, especially achieved at dusk. Within the glorious castle was the king, his spouse, the Queen, and their son, Prince Lucus. 2. Prince Lucus was a fine young man. His sparkling eyes could make you feel as if you were floating in a clear silver lake, so rare, it was unknown to existence. His Highness had such a bright smile, it seemed to light up even the darkest lurking room. His hair, excessively light in hue, would gleam brilliantly even under the moon's dulled radiance. He was beautiful in such way that an unwed matron walking by would sigh an audible painful gasp of longing. Unfortunately, that included women were in the most pleasant marriage, gaining His Majesty the vilest of scowls from their jealous husbands. 3. The Queen was thrilled. It was the day of Prince Lucas's 22nd birthday, and the Queen had called all of the citizens within the small civilization to celebrate her only son's birthday. This was no ordinary birthday, you see, this was the year when the prince would take the place of his father, the king. In preparation for this thrilling event, the Queen ordered the royal staff to prepare an enormous feast filled with luscious pot roast, the freshest greens, and the finest wines. 5. The Queen raised her gold glass of wine and cleared her throat. My fine people, today is the day where my beloved son has lived his 22nd year of life. Within that time frame, he has gained all of the knowledge needed to lead our country. Nerveless, as you all probably know, it does not take just a king to rule a country, but a queen to equalize his power and heart. My son has reached the age where he will begin his search for a bride with the right components that are suitable to him. The examination commences within one full moon, Gutin Apeti. And with that, the citizens refocus on their place in front of them, returning to their previous conversations. 6. After approximately 30 sunrises and sunsets, Her Majesty the Queen set up the festival, in which held the search for their country's future queen. 7. Her Majesty cleared her throat and begun. I instructed the boarding communities to select their finest daughters, in a chance of my son's hand in marriage. Prince Lucus strolled confidently within view of the audience and could hear the sighs of longing. In front of him were 7 beautiful young women, but none struck any interest to His Majesty. He was appalled by the layers of powder that seemed to be covering every inch of the young ladies' faces, creating an unnaturally display of perfection. Crushed with disappointment, His Majesty wanted to cancel the festival altogether, finding it useless, to begin with. Prince Lucus feared of leading his country alone. But there was a slight change of plans. 8. An elderly woman with a weathered, chocolate face appeared before him, a cloud of smoke circling her waist. 9. Her voice rough, as if it wasn't in use in over a century, as it actually wasn't. Do not fret, young one, I have read the despair in your soul, and have found the longing in your heart. A young prince like you should lead his country with his bride right by his side. I will send a beautiful girl who will love you unconditionally, as you for sure will do the same. But of course, there is a price that you must pay. Because this act of kindness comes with such a great cost, I will give you 3 strikes. Fail your chance of loyalty to the girl and you are to be doomed to loneliness for all eternity. I see the goodness in your heart, do not disappoint me. 10. And with that she disappeared as abruptly as she appeared, her cloud of thick smoke remained. His Majesty blinked. 11. Prince Lucus was ecstatic with his chance of true love. He waited patiently for 6 days, anticipating his future bride. On the 7th day, the prince was frustrated and started to believe that the elder had figged. 12. The 7th day, Tilda. Mother, I am to be outside riding the royal horses. Prince Lucus informed his mother. The Queen nodded and continued discussing politics with her husband, the King. As the prince strolled out of the castle, he thought about the woman from earlier. He had developed a newfound hatred, in which she made him hope for nothing. His Majesty stood up from the rock he sat on, and brushed off his silk trousers, finishing the last of his juicy red apple. Deciding to take a walk through the nearby woods, the prince pulled out his wool sweater. The prince strolled into the green canopy that he knew like the back of his hand. 13. His Majesty felt a small body crash into his muscular one. Appalled by such clumsiness, which he has never witnessed before, living in such a graceful manner, he grabbed the person's small shoulders in the attempt to steady the body. Burning with curiosity, the prince peered into the person's face. 14. She was stunning, indeed. Even the prince, for once, was caught speechless. Her mocha face was smooth and her wide emerald eyes were humble and inviting. He was overjoyed with a feeling so alien, yet it seemed to choke him. 15. You know, you can let go of me now. Her small voice was smooth, putting even honey to shame. The prince didn't budge. Hey! I said let go of me, you creep. His Majesty flinched, for he had never been scolded in his life, reluctantly pulled his hands off of her. This was the young woman the witch had promised. 16. Prince Lucus was in love, he was sure. How else could he describe the warm glowing feeling within him? 17. Wow, is that a crown you're wearing? Gee, you're worse than I thought. So well. Hello. You alive there, buddy? I hope that lady didn't pair me up with some deaf creep. The young woman squinted her glorious eyes. Snapping out of his thoughts, the prince took the woman's small hand and helped her out of the forest. 18. The woman waved her small palms in front of His Majesty's face. Well, how about you put yourself in use for once, yeah? And give me a hand. Some random old lady pops up in some smoke declaring me as your soulmate or something. Which doesn't make any sense because you seem like some self-absorbed rich dude, who doesn't give two cracks about anyone. The beautiful woman brushed her skirt, which was tattered and dirty. Prince Lucus was astonished by such language and attitude, for an odd reason didn't feel offended. 19. Once the prince led the woman out of the forest, who introduced herself as Bethany. He brought her to the castle where he would present her as his fiancée at once, giving no other man the chance. Expecting his mother to be joyous for him, he introduced Bethany as his future wife. Instead, the Queen did the quite opposite and ordered his son to call off the marriage. 20. Prince Lucus, who had already fallen for Bethany, calmly declined his mother's order, reminding her it was his choice for his bride. 21. The Queen, blinded by jealousy from the woman's beauty, threatened to kill the girl if her son did not banish her from the kingdom, within 3 days. 22. Bethany, who had also fallen in love with the prince, wanted no tension between the family, offered to sacrifice her life in order for the kingdom to live in peace once the prince reached the time limit. 23. The prince, torn by his love for his mother and father, and his love for his future bride, was left clueless. Then frustrated for his mother's disapproval and not acceptance. 24. That night, when the prince went to bed, he weighed his choices, later coming to the conclusion he would fight for Bethany. 25. The prince, satisfied from his choice, started to drift to sleep but was soon interrupted by an abrupt blood-curdling scream. 26. His Majesty yanked back to conscious and ran to the room across from his, where Bethany slept. His Majesty should have known that it was a mistake to sleep in separate rooms. 27. The prince's heart dropped when he saw his love drowning in her own scarlet blood, the kitchen butcher knife lodged straight into her chest. His Majesty's left eye twitched in fury. Scanning the room, he was able to make out a feminine frame in the darkness and shine the lantern on it. 28. There stood his mother, with a satisfied expression, peering at his love in disgust. "Oh, no longer beautiful are we?" 29. With that the prince attacked. Grabbing the first thing that came to view, His Majesty smashed an antique lamp against his mother's skull, killing her. Because Bethany was worth fighting for. 30. His Majesty's mood darkened with grief. Had he just executed his own mother, his very own blood and kindred? As Prince Lucus, who would soon to be crowned king in a matter of time, took a reflection of his actions, the more he despised himself. Prince Lucus wept in agony, for he had just lost the two most important women in his lifetime. 31. His Majesty's mourning was soon interrupted by a familiar suffocating cloud of smoke. The elderly witch from before had once again dared to confront the prince. His soulful greeting soon vanished and was replaced with raging chagrin. His Majesty drew out his sword from his waistband and strode towards the deceiving woman. "How dare you have the nerve to show your wretched face in my kingdom once again? I loved Bethany with my whole being, yet you still snatched her from my life. I will kill you for such wicked actions." However, the witch simply stared him down and waited for his ranting to exhaust. "I will keep good to my word, boy. Do not fret, you have most definitely proved yourself as a good candidate for the girl." Prince Lucus scoffed, "And such measures required the extermination of my mother?" The witch shrugged flippantly, a small grin enveloping her wrinkled chocolate face. "The was of your own accord, your highness." 32. The upcoming weeks in the castle were almost too much for the newly crowned King Lucus to bear. As soon as he was appointed as king, the royal council took no shame in bombarding His Majesty with federal documents, ally agreements, and ghastly board meetings. After a long day in his office, King Lucus stumbled stiffly into his chamber with his muscles aching in fatigue. It was moments like these that put the king in sorrowful anguish. If the odds were turned and his queen was still to be alive, perhaps the burden of the whole kingdom would not contain as many hardships. His Majesty gazed longingly at his bed. His heart ached for the small cocoa frame that would have encased within it. 33. "Your Majesty, there is someone here that demands to see you." King Lucus glanced up from his documents in annoyance. "Please tell this someone that I order that they are exited out of the castle. I'm quite busy at the moment." The guard grinned sheepishly. "The woman commanded me to let herself in your office, stating that if I didn't, she would beat you in your own crown." His Majesty cocked an eyebrow. He hadn't heard such bluntness since the arrival of Bethany, but King Lucus quickly shook off the thought of her. "Let her in then." An undeniable beacon of hope flickered in his chest. His guard nodded and shifted to the left to expose the woman. King Lucus felt his throat constrict in disbelief, and before he could control his actions, he already had the woman in his tight embrace. The woman patted his back awkwardly yet still affectionately in response. "Good heavens, Bethany, you're truly here," King Lucus managed to choke out as he buried his face into the softness of her dark curls. "Well, you can't get rid of me that easily, Your Majesty. Besides, my title as queen sounded oh so tempting." However, Queen Bethany's rambling was rudely interrupted as King Lucus impatiently pressed his lips to hers. The end.